The room was made of glass and envy. Crystal chandeliers hummed above a table lined with money dressed as people. Every laugh felt rehearsed. Every compliment carried an agenda. Then came the silence, the kind that only falls before something cruel. Her name was Maya Ellis, 38, in a white satin dress that refused to compete with the sparkle around her. She smiled the way women smile when they've earned peace the hard way, not to impress, just to exist. Across from her, champagne fizzed in crystal. Conversations about markets and mergers danced like sparks until the woman in fuchsia raised her hand. "Wash off that dirty stink." The words cut through the gala like a blade through silk. A bottle tilted. Gold liquid arced in slow motion, a glittering insult caught in chandelier light, then burst across Maya's face, soaking her dress, her calm, her dignity. Gasps fluttered around the room like startled birds. Forks froze midair. A violinist somewhere stopped playing, his bow hanging in disbelief. The woman holding the bottle, Sabrina Langford, Billionaire's sister, heir to entitlement itself, smiled, triumphant, like she'd just won a battle no one else saw. Maya didn't move. She blinked once. Champagne ran down her cheekbones like tears that had too much pride to fall. Her hands stayed still in her lap, fingers resting lightly on the tablecloth. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't leave. "Is that all?" she asked. Sabrina's smirk faltered. A few guests looked away. The man beside Maya, an investment executive trying too hard to seem amused, coughed into his napkin. Cameras lifted subtly. This was the kind of scene that lived forever online. At the far end of the hall, an assistant whispered into a mic, "Should I call security?" The host, pale now, didn't answer. He knew who Maya was invited by, but not who she was. The billionaire himself, Victor Langford, sat 3 seats away, jaw tight, eyes flicking between his sister and the woman she'd just drenched. He didn't speak either. Power, when it's cornered by shame, often hides behind silence. Maya reached for her napkin, dabbed at her cheek, one precise gesture, not to clean, but to reclaim. Then she said softly, "I see how deals are made in this family." A murmur rippled across the table. Somewhere, someone muttered, "She's overreacting." Another voice whispered, "No, she's too calm. That's worse." Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Maya. The music never returned that night, neither did Sabrina's smile. Because humiliation, once poured, doesn't evaporate, it ferments. And Maya Ellis had just decided who would drown in it next. The air didn't move for a full 10 seconds. Just the soft drip of champagne running off Maya's chin onto the linen tablecloth. A quiet metronome of humiliation. Then, like ripples after a dropped stone, the whispers began. She didn't even react. Who is she anyway? Probably a +1. The kind of murmurs that grow fangs when wrapped in wealth. Sabrina Langford leaned back in her chair, still gripping the bottle, her breath quick and shallow from the thrill of dominance. Around her, faces pretended to smile, the brittle kind that says, "Don't drag me into this." A waiter in a black vest approached, trembling, a folded napkin in his hands. "Mom, would you like—" Maya lifted her eyes to him, calm, unflinching. "No, let it dry. Everyone should see it." The waiter froze, then stepped away. The meaning landed harder than any slap. Victor Langford finally spoke, voice brittle. "Sabrina, that's enough." His sister turned to him, eyes flashing. "Enough? She insulted me by existing at our table. You saw how she looked at me." "She looked at you the way people do when they're reminded of mirrors," Maya said softly. The room exhaled in disbelief. A few gasps, a few glances to phones that had quietly begun recording. A man 2 seats down, PR executive by the name tag still hanging from his jacket, whispered to his date, "That woman just ended her social life." His date replied, "Or maybe she's the only real person here." .com. The host, now sweating through his tuxedo, tried to reset the night. "Everyone, please, let's enjoy dessert." But no one lifted a fork. Maya sat straighter. The wet silk clung to her like proof. In the crystal reflection of her glass, she saw her younger self, 23, standing in a hotel lobby where a clerk had told her, "Try somewhere more affordable." Back then, she walked away. Tonight, she wouldn't. Her phone vibrated under the table, one buzz, short and coded. Her assistant Carla never messaged without reason. Maya didn't open it yet. Not here. Not until it mattered. Across from her, Sabrina chuckled, the brittle laugh of someone too proud to feel shame. You know what, Victor? If she's a guest, maybe she should thank me. I just baptized her into high society. Maya turned her head slowly, meeting her gaze. You just poured away $2.4 billion, she said evenly. Sabrina frowned. What? Maya didn't answer. She reached for her clutch, wiped her fingers clean, and looked at the table of silent witnesses. Keep your champagne, she said. You'll need it to drown what's coming next. Somewhere in the back, a camera flash went off. And for the first time all night, Sabrina Langford looked unsure which of them the spotlight was really on. The hum of conversation didn't return. It only fractured, low murmurs breaking against the marble walls, the sound of power pretending it wasn't afraid. Somewhere a server dropped a spoon. It clattered like a warning. Sabrina's voice cracked through the silence. You think threats make you important? Her words slurred. Too much champagne, too much pride. She gestured toward Maya with a dismissive flick, droplets scattering like glittering shrapnel. You're lucky I even noticed you, too. Maya looked at her for a long moment, the kind that makes arrogance feel small. You did notice me. That's the problem. Victor exhaled heavily, pressing a hand to his temple. Sabrina, please. No, Victor, she snapped. You don't get to play diplomat now. She came here on your invitation. She came here, Maya interrupted, because this dinner was supposed to celebrate a merger, our companies, our futures. But I see now it's just about names on glassware and faces on magazines. No tent. Across the table, someone whispered, Wait, she's with Ellison Group? Another voice replied, No, that's Ellis, Maya Ellis. The murmurs swelled, phones slipped out of clutches and handbags. Record buttons glowed red under the table. Maya's calm wasn't silence, it was choreography. Every breath measured, every pause sharpened. She reached for her wine glass, untouched, and raised it just enough to catch the light. To the Langfords, she said. May their next deal be worth the stain they've earned tonight. No one dared toast back. A man at the far end cleared his throat. Miss Ellis, he said carefully, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Maya turned toward him, her tone razor-thin. Yes, you misunderstood who you humiliated. For the first time, Sabrina faltered. Her smile wilted under the weight of 100 watching eyes. What's that supposed to mean? Maya's gaze slid toward Victor. It means tomorrow morning your board will find an email titled Termination of Acquisition, effective immediately. Victor stiffened. You wouldn't. I already did. The words landed like a verdict. No anger, no theatrics, just finality wrapped in grace. A waiter tried to refill glasses, but his hand shook. The sound of pouring wine was the only applause. Sabrina's jaw dropped. You're bluffing. Maya leaned forward slightly. You think I'd sit through this dinner without owning the table? The guests held their breath. Victor's phone buzzed once, twice, a vibration loud enough to fill the silence. He glanced at the screen, color draining from his face. From the head of the table, the host whispered, Oh my God, because the email had just arrived. And in that moment, every chandelier in the room seemed to burn brighter, as if even the light wanted to witness retribution done in silk. The light off the chandeliers shimmered across crystal like a row of judgmental eyes. Victor Langford stared at his phone, the color in his face fading from command to collapse. He scrolled once, twice, and then stopped. The subject line was unmistakable. Termination of merger. Ellison Group. Holdings. He looked up, voice thin. You can't just end a deal like that at a dinner table. Maya's tone was cool steel. I don't end deals at tables. I end them where the ink meets the arrogance. However, a few guests sucked in breath through their teeth. Sabrina reached across, snatched Victor's phone, and read the email. Her smile trembled, disbelieving. This isn't legal. It's already logged, Maya said. Your legal team will confirm before dessert. Someone at the far end whispered, She actually did it. Another murmured, 2.4 billion gone. Sabrina stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor like a scream. You ruined everything. Maya didn't move. No, Sabrina, you poured it away. Security near the door took an uncertain step forward, glancing at Victor for a cue. He waved them off, eyes unfocused, the kind of stare that comes from watching your power evaporate in real time. Maya turned slightly toward the crowd, her soaked dress catching the light like armor. "I came here tonight to finalize a partnership built on respect," she said. "But it seems this table doesn't know what that word means." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The silence carried it further than any microphone. At the far end, a journalist invited for photo ops now recorded discreetly. The red light on his phone blinked like a countdown. He whispered to the person beside him, "This will be everywhere by morning." Sabrina's eyes filled with panic. "Victor, say something. Tell her she can't walk away from us." Victor's reply came out like a confession. She already did. Maya stood, gathering her clutch. Champagne still glistened on her shoulder, each droplet refracting the chandeliers into a quiet storm. "You mistook civility for weakness," she said. "That's your final miscalculation." She glanced toward the maitre d', who'd been frozen by the door all evening. "Send my regards to your staff," she added. "They handled this with more dignity than their employers." As she turned to leave, Sabrina lunged, desperate. "You think this is over?" Maya paused by the entrance, head tilted slightly. "It was over the moment you opened that bottle." And then she walked, slow, deliberate, down the marble hallway, heels echoing like verdicts. Behind her, the murmurs rose, a tide of disbelief and reluctant awe. At the table, Victor slumped back, whispering to no one, "We just lost the biggest contract of our lives." Somewhere outside, the city kept shining indifferent, unstoppable, just like her. Maya's heels struck the marble in perfect rhythm, each step measured like punctuation at the end of a sentence the world needed to hear. The corridor outside the ballroom was lined with mirrors, and for the first time that night, she allowed herself to look, not to fix her appearance, but to witness what dignity looked like after surviving humiliation. Her reflection stared back, soaked but unbroken. Behind her, the ballroom erupted in a flurry of whispers. Victor barked orders into his phone. Sabrina shouted her innocence to anyone who would listen. But power has an echo, and tonight it no longer belonged to them. It followed Maya instead, silent, heavy, inevitable. At the end of the hallway, her assistant Carla Evans appeared, tablet in hand, already anticipating her next move. "Mom," she said quietly. The press picked up a recording. The clip's trending. Champagne scandal at Langford Gala. Maya's eyes didn't flinch. "Good. Let them see it. The world should know what privilege does when it forgets its reflection." Carla nodded, scrolling. "Board meeting's been moved to midnight. Legal confirmed. Contract voided. Funds frozen. And PR on standby. Draft a statement," Maya said. "No anger, just truth." They stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut with a soft metallic sigh. Maya exhaled for the first time since the wine touched her skin. Carla handed her a silk handkerchief. "You sure you want to face cameras tonight? You could wait till morning?" Maya dabbed at her collarbone, the last traces of champagne fading into shimmer. "If I wait," she said, "they'll write the story for me." The elevator descended, slow and cinematic. Maya's gaze fell to her phone. 100 notifications, messages from board members, journalists, even old rivals now offering support. She opened one. "Proud of you. They needed that lesson." Another simply read, "Finally, someone said no." The doors opened to the hotel lobby. Paparazzi lights flared like lightning, voices overlapping. "Miss Ellis, did the Langfords assault you? Are you canceling the merger? Is this racial discrimination?" Maya stopped at the threshold, the crowd parting as if her composure demanded space. She spoke clearly, her tone calm, unshaken. "Tonight wasn't about money," she said. "It was about respect. And when that's gone, the deal was already dead." Tea. Cameras flashed again, her soaked dress glinting under the lobby lights like polished defiance. Carla whispered beside her, "Do you want to leave through the back?" Maya shook her head. "No. I want them to see what survival looks like in public." And she walked through the revolving doors into the night, the cool air wrapping around her, washing away the last trace of champagne, leaving only the scent of resolve. In the ballroom above, Sabrina Langford's voice could still be heard, shrill and panicked. But outside, Maya Ellis had already stepped into something far louder, silence that belonged entirely to her. Outside, the city pulsed with its usual midnight rhythm, taxis honking, streetlights blinking like camera shutters. But that night, Every lens seemed to turn toward one woman walking through the rain in a champagne-stained dress. Maya Ellis didn't hurry. She never did. Power doesn't run. It arrives. Carla followed half a step behind, phone pressed to her ear. Media outlets are requesting statements. NBC, The Times, Bloomberg. Let them wait, Maya said, voice low. Truth doesn't chase microphones. A black sedan pulled up at the curb. The driver stepped out, opened the door, then froze when he saw the state of her gown. Miss Ellis, it's fine, she said, sliding in gracefully. It's just proof. The car glided away from the Langford estate, city lights streaking across the windows like brushstrokes. Inside, Carla handed over the tablet. You should see this. The video had already gone viral. A 30-second clip of champagne cascading across silk, Maya's calm reply, and the caption, "She didn't flinch." Millions of views. Thousands of comments. Maya watched in silence. Her own face on screen, unshaken, unbroken, looked like someone else entirely. It's strange, she murmured, how people finally see you once you've been insulted. Carla glanced up from her screen. People are calling it a symbol. Grace under fire. Hashtags everywhere. That, Maya smiled faintly. Let's not make it poetry. It was just consequence. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Miss Ellis, a man's voice said, hesitant but formal. This is Senator Clark. I wanted to say, what happened tonight shouldn't have. My office would like to meet. Quietly. Quiet doesn't fix systems, Senator, Maya replied. Make it public, or don't make it at all. She hung up before he could answer. The car slowed as they approached the Ellison Tower, her building, glass and steel rising like a monument to perseverance. A security guard opened the doors, bowing slightly. Inside, the marble floors gleamed, and employees, night shift analysts, janitors, guards, stood at attention as she passed. None spoke, but every eye carried pride. In the elevator, Carla broke the silence. The Langfords released a statement already. They're calling it a misunderstanding between close partners. Maya laughed once, soft, disbelieving. Close partners don't pour wine, they pour apologies. The elevator opened directly into her penthouse office. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the skyline, towers shimmering, clouds drifting low like smoke from a finished fire. Maya stepped toward the glass and placed her hand against the reflection of the city. File the lawsuit, she said quietly. Carla hesitated. All of it? Every clause, every breach. If they can humiliate in public, they can answer in public. Lightning flickered across the skyline, turning her reflection into a silhouette of resolve. Maya Ellis didn't raise her voice that night. She didn't need to. The world was already listening. By morning, the city's skyline woke to headlines that burned brighter than sunrise. Every screen flashed the same phrase, Billionaire's sister throws wine on CEO, $2, 4B. Deal canceled overnight. Maya Ellis watched the chaos unfold from her office window, a mug of black coffee steady in her hand. Her phone vibrated in steady rhythm. Board members, partners, investors, all wanting the same thing, a reaction. Carla stepped in, tablet glowing. CNN just aired the clip again. Public opinion's turning fast. The Langford stock dropped 12% in an hour. Maya took a slow sip, unhurried. People move money the way they move morals, only after it's safe. She set her cup down, eyes still fixed on the skyline. Schedule a press briefing for noon, but I won't talk about revenge. I'll talk about repair. Carla blinked. Repair? After what they did? Exactly, Maya said. Let them choke on the contrast. Across town, the Langford headquarters was in full panic. Reporters swarmed the gates. Victor barked orders at his team, tie loosened, voice cracking under pressure. We need control of the narrative, he shouted. Say it was an accident. She leaned forward. The glass tipped. A junior assistant whispered, Sir, there are 3 angles of video. Victor's eyes darkened. Then buy them. Already tried. They're everywhere. Back at Ellison Tower, Maya stood before the mirror wall, adjusting a fresh suit, charcoal gray understated power. She looked like composure tailored. Do we have confirmation on the injunction? Carla nodded. Filed and served. The Langfords can't touch joint assets till the court review. Good, Maya said. Let them sit in the silence they created. She turned to her assistant, voice softer now. You remember that night in Atlanta, years ago, when that hotel manager made me wait outside in the rain? Carla nodded. You started your first company the next day. Maya smiled faintly. It's always the rain that reminds me who I am. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a message from an unfamiliar contact. Miss Ellis, I represent multiple CEOs supporting your stand. Private roundtable tonight. Discretion guaranteed. Maya read it twice. They want to talk about ethics, she said, half smiling. Funny how scandal makes people remember integrity. Carla watched her quietly. Do you ever get tired of fighting? Only when it stops mattering, Maya replied. And today, it matters. At noon, she stepped onto the stage of the press hall. Flashbulbs erupted. The same room that once applauded deals now waited for truth. Last night wasn't about a contract, she began. It was about what people think they can pour over you and still expect you to smile. But dignity doesn't evaporate. She paused, letting silence do the rest. Cameras clicked like thunder. Across the city, Victor Langford watched the broadcast, jaw clenched. Sabrina sat beside him, eyes hollow, whispering, "What do we do now?" Victor didn't answer. He just stared at the screen, at the woman he'd underestimated, and said, almost to himself, "We watch the empire she builds from our ashes." The air in the press hall felt charged, like the pause before a storm breaks. Cameras ringed the room. Reporters sat shoulder to shoulder, fingers poised over keyboards. Maya Ellis stood at the podium in her tailored gray suit, not defensive, not triumphant, just centered. Behind her, the Ellison Group insignia glowed like a quiet oath. "Power without respect," she began, "is just performance, and I don't perform for privilege." A ripple moved through the crowd, a mix of admiration and discomfort. She continued, every word sharp and deliberate. What happened at the Langford Gala wasn't about a drink or a dinner. It was about the assumption that some people belong everywhere and others should apologize for existing there. That assumption ends here. From the front row, a reporter raised her hand. "Miss Ellis, are you saying this was racially motivated?" Maya's pause was surgical. "I'm saying it was culturally permitted, which might be worse." A few gasps, a few pens stopped moving. Carla, standing just off stage, felt goosebumps rise along her arms. Another reporter called out, "Will you pursue damages?" Maya's tone didn't waver. "No, money can't repair dignity, but transparency can prevent the next insult disguised as an accident. That's why I've donated the merger's entire penalty payout, $200 million, to fund workplace equality programs nationwide." The room erupted, shutters flashing, voices rising, questions overlapping. Maya lifted one hand, silencing them with grace. "Justice," she said, "isn't revenge, it's redesign." That line would headline every major outlet within the hour. Across the city, in the Langford penthouse, Victor watched from a darkened room. His PR director murmured, "She's dismantling us," without raising her voice. Sabrina, pale and sleepless, sat curled on the sofa, whispering to herself, "It was just wine." Victor's jaw clenched. It was power, and she just took it back. Meanwhile, back at the Ellison Tower, applause thundered as Maya stepped off the stage. Carla met her with a steady gaze. That was more than a statement. That was a shift. Maya smiled faintly. "Then it's working." They walked down the hallway toward her office, heels echoing in rhythm. "You'll be called brave," Carla said. "And controversial." Maya nodded. "That's fine. The truth always is, the first time it's said aloud." As they entered the executive floor, screens along the corridor played news clips in real time. Anchors repeating her words, public figures tweeting, "Number Justice in Silk trending worldwide." Maya paused at one screen showing the viral headline, "Silence as Strategy, the CO who won without shouting." She read it once, quietly, then turned to Carla. "Remind the team," she said. "We don't celebrate the noise, we build from the quiet." And as the world argued over her tone, her composure, her courage, Maya Ellis sat back in her chair, serene, deliberate, planning the next move that would make this moment more than history. It would make it structure. That night, the Ellison Tower didn't sleep. Light spilled from every floor, a constellation of resolve against the dark. The building had become more than headquarters. It was a pulse, steady and defiant. Maya sat in her glass-walled office, shoes off, feet resting on the marble edge beneath her desk. The city glowed below, indifferent and glittering. Carla entered quietly, a folder in hand. The Langfords issued a counterstatement, she said. They're calling it a personal misunderstanding exaggerated by social media. Maya smirked. Ah, the old apology in disguise. Never admit, just reframe. They also announced a new charity initiative, Carla added. Something about bridging divides in corporate culture. Guilt laundering, Maya murmured. Let them scrub. She flipped open the folder. Inside were new proposals, fresh contracts, other corporations seeking partnership in the wake of the scandal. Some were old rivals, some opportunists. All suddenly remembered her worth. Carla hesitated. You could triple your market share if you signed just 2 of these. I didn't build this to trade dignity for growth, Maya said, her voice even. If they're coming because of the storm, they'll leave when it clears. Outside her window, a billboard flickered with her face, captured mid-speech at the press conference, eyes calm, jaw set. The caption read, Integrity is a currency too. Maya leaned back, watching the rain start to fall, soft against the glass. Funny, she said. The same rain that used to mean survival now feels like applause. Carla smiled faintly. You've changed how people talk about power. Then I want to make sure they remember it wasn't luck. It was policy. Her intercom buzzed. Miss Ellis, said the security chief, there's someone downstairs asking to see you. Victor Langford. Carla's head snapped up. You want me to send him away? Maya's answer came without hesitation. No, let him in. Minutes later, Victor stepped into her office. The same man who once toasted her potential, now carrying defeat in his shoulders. His tie was gone, his expression stripped of the arrogance that had once been armor. Maya, he began, voice raw, I came to apologize, publicly if you wish. My sister's actions. She raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. Don't rewrite it, Victor. You didn't pour the wine, but you built the table. He lowered his gaze. You've destroyed us. She stood, crossing the room slowly, every movement deliberate. No, Victor, you did that when you stayed silent. He looked up, searching for the woman he thought he knew. What do you want from me? Maya met his eyes, calm and final. Not your remorse, just your resignation from every board that allowed this to happen. Then maybe you'll understand what accountability tastes like. Tender. The rain hit the window harder, as if to punctuate her words. Victor nodded slowly, the kind of nod that meant surrender, not agreement, and turned to leave. As the elevator doors closed behind him, Maya whispered to herself, one less empire pretending to be civilized. And outside, the storm applauded. By dawn, Victor Langford's resignation had become global news. The stock market opened in chaos. Shares of Langford Industries plummeted 18% before stabilizing under a single headline, Ellis Effect. Analysts debated whether Maya Ellis had destroyed an empire or forced it to evolve. Maya didn't join the debate. She was already 3 steps ahead. In her office, the morning light spilled across contracts and coffee cups. Carla entered, tablet in hand, her face a mix of disbelief and pride. It's everywhere, Maya. They're calling it the cleanest power play of the decade. Hashtags, editorials, even Harvard wants to do a case study. Maya looked up from her notes, unimpressed. Case studies don't fix culture, policies do. She gestured toward the window, where the skyline still shimmered. We'll launch the foundation next week. Scholarships, training, leadership programs for women of color in business. Turn the noise into structure. Carla nodded, already in motion, and the Langfords' legal team just issued their settlement offer. How generous? Maya asked. Carla read from the screen. Full apology, financial restitution, and a public joint statement, but they want your approval before release. Maya leaned back in her chair, silent for a moment. A public joint statement, she repeated softly. They want to stand beside me now. The same people who couldn't stand my presence at their own table. Her voice stayed calm, but her eyes burned with something colder than anger. Clarity. Tell them they can release it, but make sure my name appears above theirs. Alphabetical order never mattered more. Across town, Victor stared at the draft statement on his laptop. His lawyers circled him like ghosts, murmuring about optics, damage control, and legacy. But all he could see was the image of Maya's still face, the weight of his own silence pressing down on him. By noon, the statement went live. 2 names, side by side, Ellison Group and Langford Holdings. The press release read, mutual recognition of professional integrity, and a shared commitment to equity moving forward. But everyone knew what it really meant. Maya Ellis had rewritten the script. She watched the coverage quietly, no smile, no satisfaction, just stillness. Carla hovered nearby. "You did it. You changed the conversation." Maya shook her head. "Not yet. Changing talk is easy. Changing tone is harder." Her phone buzzed, an alert from a junior analyst she'd mentored years ago. "Miss Ellis, because of you, I wore my natural hair to work today. No one said a word. Thank you." Maya stared at the message for a long moment. Then she whispered, "That's the real merger." Outside, the sky cleared. The rain that had baptized her humiliation was gone, leaving behind a city rinsed clean, or at least aware. In the distance, the Langford building still stood, tall but dim. Reputation could rebuild, but respect? That was under new ownership. A week later, the city had calmed, but the silence hummed with new rules. Boardrooms now began meetings with phrases like equity review and representation metrics. Maya Ellis had become less a person and more a calibration point, the measure of what accountability should look like. In her office, the blinds were half open, spilling soft morning light across rows of fresh-printed documents. Carla stood by the window, scrolling headlines. "Every outlet's running retrospectives," she said. "They're calling it the champagne shift." Maya almost smiled. "A pretty name for something that cost me a dry cleaning bill and 3 decades of patience." Carla laughed, then sobered. "You know, they're afraid of you now." "They should be afraid of what they almost normalized," Maya replied. Her voice was calm, but her gaze had weight. On the wall hung a framed photo, not of the gala, not of the press conference, but of her first office. One desk, one bulb, a cracked coffee mug that said, "Make them remember." She touched the frame lightly. "Power isn't the headline," she said. "It's the lesson." The intercom buzzed. "Miss Ellis, there's someone here to see you, Miss Langford." Carla's eyebrows shot up. "You want me to want—" "No," Maya interrupted gently. "Send her in." The door opened. Sabrina Langford entered hesitantly. No makeup, no entourage, just a woman stripped of protection. The defiance that once glittered in her eyes was gone. What remained was raw and human. Maya gestured to the chair opposite. "Sit." Sabrina did, clutching her hands together. "I didn't come for forgiveness," she said softly. "I came because I saw the foundation you started, the programs, the funding, and I realized I never asked myself how it feels to earn a seat instead of inherit one." "Aber." Maya studied her for a moment, the same face that had smirked above the champagne glass now trembling with recognition. "Awareness is expensive," she said quietly, "but it pays better than arrogance." Sabrina's eyes glistened. "I can't undo what I did." "No," Maya agreed, "but you can use your name to amplify something worth hearing for once." A pause hung between them, not hostile, not forgiving, just honest. Then Maya stood, extending her hand. "If you want to change the room, start by rebuilding the table." Sabrina shook it, surprised by the firmness of the gesture. For the first time, their hands met without pretense. When she left, Carla entered slowly. "You just gave her a second chance." Maya turned back toward the window. She gave it to herself. "I just made sure the lights were still on." Outside, the city pulsed again, cleaner, sharper, almost new. And somewhere between power and grace, Maya Ellis realized the victory was no longer about revenge. It was about inheritance, the kind that couldn't be passed down, only built. A month later, the world had moved on, but Maya Ellis hadn't slowed. The headlines faded, yet her name lingered in boardrooms and classrooms like an echo of discipline. The Ellison Foundation launched quietly scholarships for Black entrepreneurs, mentorship programs, new ethical standards adopted by firms that once ignored them. The system hadn't changed overnight, but it was learning to blink. Maya stood alone on the rooftop terrace of Ellison Tower, dusk painting the skyline in bruised gold. The city below pulsed with traffic and ambition, the same rhythm that once tried to drown her. Beside her, Carla placed 2 cups of tea on the table, her voice soft. "You know, most people would have cashed out after that kind of victory." Maya smiled faintly. "That's the thing about victories. They end. Principles don't." The wind tugged at her coat. Somewhere in the distance, a billboard still carried her image. a freeze frame from the night of the press conference. Underneath it, the caption, "Respect isn't requested, it's recognized." Carla sat beside her, watching the lights flicker on across the city. "Do you ever think about that night? The wine, the whispers?" "Every day," Maya said, "not as anger, as calibration. It reminds me how fast people reveal what they think you deserve." She sipped her tea, eyes on the horizon. "And how fast you can teach them otherwise." Her phone buzzed once. A message from a young intern she'd met at the foundation's launch. "I used your name in my job interview today. They didn't flinch." Maya's lips curved into a quiet smile. "That," she said, "is what justice looks like when it's done right. Invisible, but irreversible." Below, the city hummed with stories she'd never hear. Deals, ambitions, betrayals, the same cycles she had once been trapped inside. But something in the air had shifted. People were talking differently, measuring differently. And that, she thought, was how revolutions begin. Not with noise, but with a change in tone. Carla stood. "You ready for the board dinner tonight?" Maya shook her head, amused. "No dinners. Not yet. I'm still letting the world digest the last one." They both laughed quietly, the kind of laughter earned, not performed. As the last light bled from the sky, Maya rose, gazing out over the skyline, a city that had once doubted her and now ran on her example. Her reflection merged with the glass towers, soft but unshakable. She whispered, "More to the night than to anyone else. I didn't shout, I didn't fight loud, I just stayed." And in that staying, in that unbroken stillness, she had done what power rarely does. She'd taught it to listen. The wind carried her words into the city below, scattering them among the lights. Somewhere, in a boardroom she'd never enter, someone paused before speaking, just long enough to remember her name.